so fucking precious when you smile. Yeah. Hit it from the back and drive you wild.
So, for whatever reason, interest has been growing for Resident Evil Village, and I figured it was about time that I provide a service to the community and host a sort of remedial class in the Resident Evil universe. That way, you don't have to skim through the Wikipedia. Here in this video, you're going to learn the absolute basics so you don't feel left out or confused while you focus on other priorities while playing the game. In the process, I'm really going to be simplifying / butchering some details and plot lines for the sake of brevity. If you take an issue with that, just fucking play the games yourself. Most of them are remade to an incredible quality or ported to a recent generation of console. This video is for a more specific clientele. Alright, starting things off, we have, of course,
Resident Evil.
There are 3 important characters that I'm going to need you to keep in your back pocket. Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, and Albert Wesker. Let's just call them the big 3 for now. All of these characters belong to the Raccoon City Police Department, more specifically the privately funded task force, STARS. STARS Team A has been sent out to the mountains to investigate reports of cannibalistic murders, and they disappear, leading STARS Team B, which features the big 3 by the way, to investigate what the heck happened to A. Team B end up discovering the crashed helicopter of Team A and immediately get attacked by some seriously rabid dogs. They get taken out one by one until the big 3 find refuge in a really fancy looking mansion. After they split up and search the area for survivors, they each discover that this residence is more evil than they thought. It's got zombies in it. Admittedly, they're not as fun as busty vampires or jacked werewolves, but they got the job done back in 1996. However, that isn't to say that the game is lacking in monster variety. Throughout the game, they take down humans, dogs, crows, wasps, giant snakes, giant plants, sharks, brundleflies, and lizardmen, all infected with the method of zombification in this universe, the T-virus. Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine sleuth out that this mansion, called the Spencer Estate, was the home to a lot of real messed up and illegal experimentation with this virus. They break into the underground lab beneath the estate, and there they find out, surprise surprise, Albert Wesker was working for the Umbrella Corporation all this time, the company funding the experimentation. It turns out that Wesker killed everyone in the lab to steal a perfected bioweapon for himself, and then he led both of the STARS team, A and B, into the mansion as cannon fodder so that he could do it safely. Albert Wesker is kind of a jerk. He shortly gets his comeuppance from the perfected bioweapon called Tyrant because it's just uncontrollable. Tyrant, by the way, is the first big boy we see in the series. Think of him like Big Lady's great-grandfather, just in terms of legacy. After they defeat the Tyrant, the estate self-destructs, and Jill and Chris both escape via helicopter.
Resident Evil 2.
Turns out that the highly contagious and practically supernatural zombie virus was not contained by a single house in the middle of nowhere blowing up. Not only has the T-virus outbreak reached Raccoon City a few weeks later, there's an even nastier G-virus outbreak to make things worse. Things aren't great in Raccoon City. We ditched the big 3 for this game, but don't worry, they'll be back. Instead, we're introduced to 2 new characters. Leon Kennedy, rookie cop who just transferred over to Raccoon City, and Claire Redfield, Chris's sister who's been looking for him. He's been missing since the events of RE1. Leon and Claire get trapped inside the Raccoon City police station and subsequently get lost because it is architecturally insane. The explanation is that it's a remodeled museum, I guess, but it's insane. While they're in there, they meet the next member in the big family. If you were on YouTube at all whatsoever in 2019, you're probably aware of Mr. X.
Jesus Christ!
He's just like the Tyrant we meet at the end of Resident Evil 1, except stronger, more insistent, and wearing clothes. Temporarily, anyway. He's there to do some stuff for Umbrella and kill everyone left alive in the police station, unfortunately for Leon and Claire. In this game, you fight T-zombies, G-zombies, plant zombies, zombie gators, lickers, and an angry dad. Leon and Claire escape the police station, into the sewers, and into the second underground laboratory of the series. Leon meets a hot spy lady named Ada Wong, and a lot of fan art is created. The underground lab self-destructs, and Leon and Claire both escape the city via a secret underground subway.
Resident Evil.
This game is set in pretty much the exact same time period and location as Resident Evil 2, but this one features Jill Valentine again. She's understandably still psychologically scarred from the events of Resident Evil 1, and she's doing her best to take Umbrella down for what they've done. Unfortunately, nobody believes her, and she loses her job as a cop, but that doesn't stop her. Then the Raccoon City outbreak happens, and Umbrella takes advantage of the chaos to deploy Nemesis, the third big boy of the series, and probably the most recognizable. You know how Mr. X was a stronger and smarter tyrant? Nemesis is a stronger, tentaclier, more driven Mr. X, with a rocket launcher. He's sent in during the outbreak to kill all surviving members of STARS so that Umbrella doesn't have any witnesses for their involvement with the T-Virus. Jill juggles fighting off this nemesis while searching for a possible cure for the T-Virus. This leads her to the third underground laboratory of the series. She finds a cure, but it ends up pointless because the US government decides to cut its losses and nukes the city before the outbreak spreads. With a renewed vigor to take down Umbrella, she escapes the city via helicopter.
Resident Evil 4.
Leon Kennedy is back from RE2, but he's not a rookie cop anymore. Now he's a special agent tasked with rescuing the president's daughter from a cult in Spain. Okay. In a break from tradition, this game features 0 zombies. Instead, the enemies you have to fight are members of this cult infected with Las Plagas, a mind-controlling parasite that mutates its host as a self-defense mechanism. Before they can escape, both Leon and the president's daughter need to find a way to remove the Las Plagas that they were infected with before becoming brainwashed like the rest of the cult. In this game, you battle villagers, centipede villagers, chainsaw villagers, actual trolls, cockroach men, giant mechas, a blind man, a spiky man, a long man, crows, snakes, livestock, Jean-Claude Van Damme in Street Fighter the movie, and ultimately, your patience. Eventually, they escape from the island on a jet ski. Apparently, it's also super important to the developers that you know that they absolutely do not have sex afterwards. This game is probably going to be the most similar to the upcoming Resident Evil Village. It features Leon exploring a village, a castle, and the 4th underground lab of the series. It also features a merchant and an attaché case system. By the way, the fact that you play an American agent sent to slaughter hundreds of what are essentially brainwashing victims with inaccurate Spanish accents, all to save a single blonde white girl, makes the experience feel a little racist, maybe. On the other hand, we have
Resident Evil 5.
Which, feels pretty definitively racist. Jill Valentine reconnects with Chris Redfield and they work as a bioterrorism fighting team. Turns out it's time for a Big 3 reunion because they're sent to hunt down Albert Wesker, who has not only survived RE1, but he has superpowers now, I guess. Jill sacrifices herself in order to kill Wesker, and Chris is left by himself to continue fighting bioterrorism. He goes to Africa to fight a new strain of virus called the Ouroboros, and gets a new partner called Sheva, someone that the series infuriatingly pretends later that she doesn't exist. In Africa, they traverse through a town, a mine, a swamp, an oil refinery, an underground city, a giant ship, and of course, an underground lab. There they discover that Wesker survived, and Ouroboros is the culmination of his big eugenics boner. Basically, Ouroboros will turn you either into a giant mess of tentacles or a superhero like Wesker, depending on your genetics. To accomplish this, he's gone ahead and mind-controlled Jill to do his dirty work. He plans to take a whole bunch into the atmosphere and spread it through... What was it, Wesker?
Complete global saturation.
Thank you, Wesker. The plane crashes and the Ouroboros is destroyed inside of a volcano. Wesker goes all Akira on them and is killed pretty definitively. The story that began with the Big 3 in Resident Evil 1 gets tied up with a pretty little bow, and they live happily ever after.
Resident Evil 6.
We don't talk about this one anymore. And that brings us to Resident Evil 7. This is the one that's going to be the most helpful in navigating the plot of Resident Evil Village, just because you're playing the same character. Ethan Winters is just a regular guy who's traveled to Louisiana after he receives a mysterious video from his wife, Mia, who has been missing for 3 years. She appears to be in distress and urges him to meet her. He obliges. He arrives at the Baker estate, long abandoned and derelict according to the authorities. In the basement, he finds Mia, who begs him to leave before flying into a sudden homicidal rage, and he fights her off. Then he gets captured by the Baker family.
Welcome to the family, son.
There's a super strong dad, a creepy crawly mom, a Saw franchise-obsessed son, and an anime princess daughter. Instead of a virus or a parasite, this time it's a fungal infection, one produced by this child. If you're lucky, you turn a little slimy and get superpowers. If not, well, you just get slimy. Either way, the child, called Evie, slowly starts to control your actions through the fungus in the air, and Ethan, having entered the Baker estate, is in a race against time to find a cure before he becomes a part of this family. In the obligatory Resident Evil Underground lab, Ethan discovers that his wife was in charge of babysitting Evie for a company that develops bioweapons just like her. The ship that was transporting them crashes near the Baker estate, and Evie took the opportunity to escape the company from doing more tests on her. To protect herself, she infected Mia, the Bakers, and everyone in the vicinity of the estate. Considering it all, Ethan does a pretty great job at taking out the mind-controlled Bakers and is very nearly able to kill the bioweapon in order to save his wife, but Evie proves to be a little too much for him in the end. Fortunately, Chris Redfield, who's been fighting bioterrorism all this time, swoops in with the cavalry to save you right at the very end. The game ends with Ethan Winters happily reunited with his wife and escaping from the Baker estate in a helicopter. A helicopter marked, intriguingly, with the logo of the Umbrella Corporation. By the way, I guess I should mention that there's a possibility the spin-off series, Resident Evil Revelations, might be important to the plot, but let's consider that a take-home extra credit because I'm not even going to try and simplify what goes on in those games. And that's pretty much it. You're prepared to take on Big Lady in Resident Evil Village. Hope you have fun, and I'll see you in May.
That's one way to end the video.